Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 31st of October to Thursday the 3rd of November 2022. How are you all? I hope you're all well. I am fine. My name is Alex and I present this podcast with my good friend Rob. Hello Rob.
Hi Alex, how are you this week? Now you've lied to the viewers straight to the, well, I can't say the viewers, but you've lied to the listeners straight away there because you're not fine. You're incredibly stressed.
No, I'm not.
You are. You're on edge.
That's what I'm saying. Like That's what I'm saying. Fine is middle of the road for me right now because I'm not. I'm neither one way or the other.
We've had an hour and a half
of hell.
Of absolute technical nightmares right now. Okay, so we've gone back to what's the matter?
I've just spilt Red Bull on myself now, so that just to add insult to injury. Why not?
Honestly, we've just had, listeners, we deserve all your sympathies. We have gone back to old archaic software to record for you today. This is stuff that we haven't used since I first started using started hosting the podcast, I don't think. But there we go. Hopefully we're back on Vision next week. It's a shame you can't see us because I'm wearing my best ever outfit. I look so goddamn sexy this week, and none of it can be seen whatsoever. It's a real shame.
I washed for everyone. Shame. I had a shower this morning. My weekly wash.
Alex had a shower. Yeah. Alex had a shower for you all this week.
I thought, you know what? Wasted. It's all wasted just because the I'm not going to name names, but the program that we use for our video decided that it doesn't want to play ball. And do you know what's shush? And do you know what's worse? What's even worse is that this week we should be changing the dots. We should be changing the calendar. But we can't even do that.
No, and we've done it. We started recording.
We started doing it.
And then it all went to hell, so I know what's on November, and I can't show you it. For the first month of the year, I'm actually going to be spoiled from when we hopefully show you it next week. But there we go. We'll try and get back to normal for next week.
It's a beautiful
Alex
picture.
has had a shower.
I've had a shower.
Pictures. Actually, what a complete waste. What a complete waste of water and Links Africa that was, honestly. Right.
Tell me about it. Oh,
so,
I can't. I need to deep breaths. But,
yes.
You know, people can still watch us on YouTube. It's just unfortunate this week it will just be audio. But
not a lot of movement.
Not a lot of movement. There'll just be, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think it's something fancy to do. I might find a GIF and just have it repeatedly play of one of the characters of EastEnders just constantly on a loop.
Frank's bow
tie.
For an hour.
Yes,
there you go.
An hour of that. That'd be good. But, you know, it's an opportunity for anyone, if they want to delve into this, listening to us audibly. Sounds a bit sexual, that doesn't it? Listen to us audibly. And you can on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favourite podcast apps. But so I feel like I'm a bit of a loose end because at the top of the show we like to talk, we like to do visual things, we like to do magic tricks, pull rabbits out of hats, all kinds of stuff. We can't do any of that.
We can't even see each other at the moment. It's madness. This is the first time we've had to do this in years.
I know.
So anyway, we'll see what we do. We see what we can do because it's been quite the week of EastEnders, doesn't it, Alex? So let's crack on with talking about it.
So the first story we'll be talking about this week is the Panesars, because they've had quite the crammed week this week. They've got officially a new member of the family as well has been introduced to the family, but not to everyone's joy. Vinny seemed quite disturbed and tortured this week, didn't he? He looked very angry, young lad.
I would argue that Vinny's priorities were all over the place this week because he was voicing how angry he was about his mother, murdering somebody and having to get away with it, to his father, who has murdered somebody, has been to prison. You know, his priorities were all over the place, I thought.
Well, yes, but I think it's because his father had paid the justice had been done, and his father had paid his dues to society and done the jail time, and Suki had also presented Jags to go to prison on behalf of Vinny. And I think this is literally tearing Vinny apart. That he's now in the same camp as his mother, the mother who he despises. Confused. Yeah, and he's confused. And now he's been told that he's got a brother that he didn't even know he had, in the form of Ravi. So that secret's come out this week as well, that Nish has revealed. Dr. Nina is obsessed with trying to get the money from Ranveer, her now deceased husband. It's a lot of confusion there. Kheerat doesn't really know what to do with himself because he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, being his family and his mother. as I say, troubled Vinny is tortured because he doesn't know what's the truth and what's a lie anymore. Ravi's been revealed as being the son of the Panesars. And the whole time, Nish is kind of there being the puppeteer with like all kind of trying to control everything, but at the same time not really getting the results that he wants out of it. And so trying every kind of desperate measure to get there. And at the same time, Suki is destroyed by this secret that, well, she thinks that she has killed someone when we know that she hasn't. It's just so much going on with them.
And there is so much going on. And Nish does seem to have all this under control because he has officially, him and Suki are now seemingly back together. Because basically, I thought, I'm going to be honest, I thought...
oh dear, don't think too hard.
No. I have to say, the pacing for me for this week seemed to go up a notch this week. Everything seemed to all happen quite quickly. Because at the end of last week was the big duff of Suki laying eyes on Nish for the first time in 20 years. But then by the end of Monday's episode, they had slept together. Now, I get that Suki was effectively kind of protecting Eve because Nish had made noises about, well, if there's anybody else, you wouldn't want me to do it again, would you? Implying, that he would go and kill somebody else for the love of Suki, because who wouldn't, quite frankly. So she basically has kind of rolled over and kind of allowed him back into the family, let him back into her house, let him back into her bed. And then it's all kind of gone crazy because at the same time, Ranveer's body has been discovered in Epping Forest.
By dog walkers. Forest.
It's always the dog walkers.
It's always the dog walkers. They're always up to mischief, those dog walkers. I thought that he chopped up the body of Ranveer, put him in a suitcase.
You decided this. You decided because I.
Yeah, but how did he fold this body into that small brown suitcase?
Ravigami. That's what it was. It was Ravigami. He just kind of folded him up and put him into his big old suitcase, and then apparently dumped it in Epping Forest. I know it's very odd.
That's amateurish, isn't it? Even I know you don't do that. Like you bury him under concrete under the Queen Vic. That's the kind of stuff you do.
You think? I mean, it's good to say, even Owen, who was buried in plain sight from the entire Vic under Walford Gardens, lasted longer than this.
Being dug up by dogs. Again, dog walkers.
Dog walkers. No one ever suspects the dog walkers, do they? It's never the dog walkers' fault. They always, in air quotes, find the body. They're never apparently responsible. No one ever puts a dog walker at the top of the suspect list. There's a good mystery to be found there.
They're like the Jessica Fletcher of the mystery Walford world, aren't they? Like she's always there at the murder, but never the murderer, is she?
Like Jessica Fletcher with the cockapoo. Anyway, so Ranveer's body's been found. The police are now kind of sniffing around the Panesars, trying to find out exactly what's happened. Nina is. I mean, Nina is a howl. Honestly, I'm kind of in love with Nina because she's just so ridiculous.
Dr. Nina.
Because she's turned around to Ranveer and go, right, okay, the police are asking questions, we need to go now. Because apparently, according to Nina, now Ranveer has been reported missing, the money is hers. She can apparently get access to all the money. I don't think this is quite true.
No, it's not true, is it? There's going to be a big inquiry now. So she's never going to just get the money. But she thinks she can they can sweep it under the carpet if Ravi basically says that he left before Ranveer, because then that puts the suspicion onto Suki, because Nish wanted Ravi and Suki to give statements to the police that matched one another, but but telling enough truth that they weren't kind of like complicating the situation, which I thought was quite clever actually, because if you tell too many lies, you're going to start tying yourself up into knots. So you need to try to tell as much of a truth story as you can to the police. I thought the police officer who was interviewing them was a bit cocky. Like he kept making little snide remarks, especially to Ravi, about like his relationship with his mother-in-law and not his mother-in-law, his stepmother, and so on and so forth. So I think their suspicion is with Nina, but to be fair, Nina hasn't actually done, other than manipulating Ravi, anything wrong.
Technically, no. Although she is, but she would be the prime suspect in this scenario. Apparently, if anything happens to Ranveer, all money goes to Nina, this hot younger woman that was, with a big old age gap. I wonder who's responsible for Ranveer's death. You would even Walford police could land on that, and it takes a lot for Walford police to land on the right answer, but even Walford police are capable of working this one out. Okay, so Nina is kind of like, right, well, we need to go. We need to go immediately. So Ravi is all up for going. Screw Nugget. I'll go. Suki, Nugget's fine with Suki, I suppose. I'll just go with you. Then the police arrive and take Nina away for questioning. She does her bit, and then they take Suki away for questioning, and because Suki's now absolutely crapping herself because she thinks that this is all kind of coming down around her. Kheerat then does an amazing bit of detective work by literally sitting down and working out that Ravi's killed Ranveer. I'm not quite sure how we landed on this, to be honest. Do you? He's kind of been suspicious for a while, but he's now just decided that Ravi is the one that killed Ranveer.
Yeah, it was like a bolt of lightning came to Kheerat at some point. He just went, "I know who killed Ranveer." But that's how the whole thing started to unravel, because then that's when they started having to then work out stories to tell the police. And Kheerat also told Ash and Vinny, and Ash forgave Suki, which I was really surprised by that, because I would have thought Ash would be kind of on troubled, tortured Vinny's side and just be really angry about her. I quite liked that Ash forgave Suki in that sense, because I think it was a case of, sort of, because they kind of got the full story, didn't they? That Ranveer tried to rape her, and I think that it makes complete sense for Ash to all of a sudden be sympathetic towards Suki at that moment, because it's like, right, okay, well, I understand that. I know why you've done what you've done. Vinny is still quite young and immature. I love Vinny. I love tortured Vinny. His little hair. It's like his hair is like not done, and he looked a bit unshaven.
Exactly. When Vinny's going through stuff because he doesn't do his hair. He doesn't do his hair, does he? And he wears his tracksuit. That's when we know Vinny's in troubled mode.
Things are happening in his little mind. I mean, his mental health must be just because he's always been like kind of like. Especially now Jags is kind of... Well, Jags was the middle kid, wasn't he? It was Kheerat, Jags, and then Vinny.
You've got problems when Jags is the oldest and more mature out of the family, it's...
Not anymore. But now Kheerat's the middle child, isn't he? Because Ravi's the eldest. Yeah. But so poor Vinny's, he's always been the kind of the runt of the litter, hasn't he? But I mean, you have to say, there was a line this week that said, now I see it, Ravi, you really do look like our dad, Nish. But I thought Nish looks more like Vinny. Don't you think Nish and Vinny look really similar? They look they do. Similar.
They do look quite similar. And so from here on in, Ravi is sort of getting all confused because he's actually feeling quite sort of loyal to Suki at this point, because he's sort of realised that Suki has basically been a mother to him or something. And Nina is kind of dripping poison in his ear, going, no, this is the plan. You need to drop Suki in it. That's the only way we're going to get away with this. Otherwise, I'm screwed. Which she is, in all honesty. Like I say, even Walford police know that Nina is probably the most likely suspect. She is so idiotic that she's put herself in a situation where even Walford police can work out that it was her.
She's panicking though, isn't she?
She is panicking.
We've seen that mask slip a little bit with Nina. She's been very controlled, very eloquent, very kind of able to manipulate the right people, even Ash to some extent, because she kind of stopped Ash in her tracks when Ash kind of started questioning the relationship between her and Ranveer.
She attacked Ash for the hell of it at one point. I thought. just for giggles. She just went to Ash for no reason.
I thought that was a real slip for her, and you could see the panic when Ravi was going to the police station. I feel bad, and it's weird that I feel bad for Ravi, because I know that Ravi he killed his dad, but in a weird way, how are they going to get Ravi out of this? Because I feel like he's become a bit of a fan favourite as well, and he's like a character that would necessarily in any other situation, a bit like Stuart, I suppose, although he's bad, a bit of a wrong un, he could stay. How could they get themselves out of that?
He has got Stuart vibes about him, I think, which might explain half of maybe why Stuart's gone, in all honesty, because there is a bit of a Stuart vibe about Ravi, and I think he is redeemable as well, weirdly. Even though he's killed someone, for literally the first week of appearing on the square, it feels like there is a redeemable side to him that kind of makes him...
How would they redeem him, do you think? Do you think that him going to prison, doing 6 months, that would be enough, and then let him out or something?
I don't know. Is going to be gone within the next few months. I don't know character, does she? But my prediction with Nina is that she's going to try and get with Nish at some point, because I feel like that's something that both of them would do. So I think she's going to work out that Ravi is no longer any use to her, so she's then going to move on to Nish, and then they're going to have a sort of Janine and Archie type relationship for a little while before it all sort of goes horribly wrong. And somewhere on the line, I think Nina's going to die. I mean, we're talking long-term prediction here, but I think somewhere on the way, Dr. Nina's going to end up dead by either Ravi or Nish. Possibly Nish. I feel like Nina might discover something about Nish, and then Nish might try and keep her quiet. I don't know. I'm just clutching predictions out of the water here. But this is what's so great about this story, because I've got absolutely no idea what direction it's actually going to go in. There's so many different avenues it could go down. It's very exciting.
It was lovely when they had the family on Thursday's episode, the final episode of the week, when they had all the family. Not Friday. Then they had all the family around the table, and it was the first time when you saw all of the Panesars together.
Yeah,
and it was such
except Nugget.
It felt. Of course, you're quite right, except Nugget. But Nugget's playing Xbox with, all the young kids and Denzel. But it felt like this is it. This is when this story had been. This was the start. This was the genesis, and it felt like a really monumental moment when all of them were around the table like that. It really did. It felt so. There was confidence there that this family's going to have so much going on with them for the next year or so, and I'm so excited to see it with all of them.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just, honestly, it was. If you could see my face right now, Rob, the joy that I'm beaming. I think we should quickly. We have touched on it, but I do think we need to talk about Eve and Suki. Because Eve was devastated this week because Suki gave the impression that she was going to leave Nish, and when she went to meet Nish convinced Suki not to do it. Was it pride that stopped her from doing it? The fact that he used, the family, the community, kind of being pushed out of the community, that doing something like, not supporting the man that you married? Or do you think that she suddenly saw that her family came first and that it was her family that was more important?
Well, I think it has mostly to do with the fact that she was protecting Eve. It's all been made very clear that Nish went and basically killed someone in cold blood because he was jealous of the attention that he was getting off Suki. Apparently, as we discovered this week, not even the right person, because as we kind of suspected at one point, it was a woman that was basically the cause of all this, because Suki was having a bit of a sort of dalliance with the guy that died, like the neighbour's wife. Was getting a sort of connection from her. Nish got confused, had no idea what was actually happening, and went for the guy instead, and then went to prison for his murder.
Yes.
And then basically when he arrived back on the square and him and Suki had that first conversation, which I thought was electric, by the way. The chemistry those two have together was immediately fantastic, I thought. So that's going to be really good moving forward. But he basically implied that, well, I'll do it again. If there's somebody else that's stopping you from getting back with me straight away, because why wouldn't you get back with me straight away? I'm back home, darling. What's wrong with you? Then I have no qualms with doing it again. So I think what Suki was actually kind of trying to do was protect Eve in her own sort of Suki way. And I think the best way in her mind, I think, to do that was to try and make Eve hate her, to try and keep her away from the situation. I assume was what was going on there.
Do you think Nish has started to notice something?
Yes,
because there was that kind of deathly stare across the square.
Well, there was. Yes, and Eve sort of tried to butt horns with Nish a couple of times now. So Eve is definitely within Nish's peripheral. So yeah, I think no matter what Suki tries to do, Eve, I think, is because she's so in love with Suki at this point. I think that she's now going to try. She's going to keep getting herself involved in the situation, whether she means to or not. She's going to be one of these people that I think is now just going to start getting in Nish's way in quite a lot of ways, whether she means to or not. So Eve is still in danger no matter what Suki does. So it's very exciting.
Well, like I say, big stories ahead. And, just seeing them around that table. Honestly, I cannot emphasize enough. It was just so nice seeing that. And so...
It was like, look at the Beals or the Mitchells around the table for
it
was their first awkward family dinner.
It was. Do you think that the Panesars could be like the new Mitchells? Because the Mitchells have lasted, 30 years? 30 years.
Someone has to.
The Panesars, the new Mitchells.
Well, I think it's really interesting that of all the kind of aggro that John Sen gets, who would have thought that his era would have given us that sort of family to kind of concentrate on moving forward.
But we've discussed this before. We've said this before. John Sen was good at introducing characters. He just didn't know what to do with them, and that was his big problem. And I think that Chris Clinshaw was. We were interested, but like there was already signs that like he was slowly destroying Like the Suki, I hated what he did with Suki being like begging Phil for like, and again, it became like a Mitchell show again. And the fact that the Panesars are like stepping forward, it's been like 2 months. Like, Ranvir's death, like I was so surprised to hear it's been like 2 months ago. And I was like, wow, has it been that long? It's flown by. But yeah, the Panesars front row centre, loving every moment of it. And you know, it's not gangster and it's not shenanigan-y, and I'm loving that too. And you know what I'm saying. But yeah, big stories ahead. So the next story we have is Harvey's story. Only a tiny story, a teeny weeny little story.
What is going on here? I'm very suspicious of what is happening here. It seems to be... so Harvey is basically going on the dating apps, and apparently the women of Walford want Harvey, because the second that he put that account live, his phone started smoking from all the attention that he was getting. Oh, he went mad. I mean, I know how we feel. Mine does that. Whenever I log onto Grindr after being disgusted by it, it just goes crazy. The second I log back onto it, what happens every time?
All over the place, I bet.
That's the one. That's the one. Pictures of penises flying at me like lemmings. You wouldn't believe.
If you know, you know, that kind of situation.
That's it.
There is a bit of jealousy though hovering around Harvey's
right, Alex,
news.
don't be jealous. You know, I don't say yes to any of them. It's okay. You mean EastEnders?
I would be, of course, I would be jealous, Rob, because, you know, being in this relationship that we've in right now.
I'm sorry. Well, I want to share this with everybody. I had a great message on Twitter this week. Right? Okay. I don't remember what the conversation was, but somebody messaged me and said that I thought you, Alex, and Ben were all in a relationship. So genuinely, apparently, to some people, me, Alex, and Ben are in a polyamorous threesome relationship.
We're a throuple.
Thruple, that's fine. If you want to think that, I like the fact that people don't think that one man is enough for me. I like giving that impression. That's cool. Thank you. But as you say, my jealousy was reflected on screen. Art imitated life this week, where Jean kind of watched from afar as Harvey was getting more and more attention on this dating app. And as you say, bless her, she was trying to say quietly that she was, you know, still interested in Harvey, but Harvey or everyone around him wasn't really listening. I mean, Harvey's got a hell of a posse now. He seems to have grown this posse. He's got Rocky, he's got Mitch, he's got Dotty. The lads of Walford. Oh, and
Dotty, I think last week we were saying how Dotty and Harvey's relationship, could it become something which was you know, more than daughter and father. That's a whole new story. That's a whole new story coming for Harvey. But I see it as in Dana's left. He's missing his daughter, and I think Dotty is kind of her replacement. And I think
Dotty hasn't got that father figure, so maybe Harvey will kind of step forward and be that father figure with that absence. Well, Rocky's still around though, isn't he? And they seem to have an all right working relationship now, Rocky and Dotty. So I don't know. I just feel like there's something that we should maybe be keeping an eye on with Harvey and Dotty. I don't know why. It's not like they're absolutely throwing all mad hints at us that something's going to happen, but it just seems like a bit of a strange pairing, unless it literally is the fact that we've become that unused to people just becoming friends on the square that we can't kind of think, oh well, that's just them becoming friends, that's fine, without it sort of having something behind it, because we've become that unused to those sorts of relationships being shown to us. It's
the Jay and Honey effect, isn't it? Ever since that relationship came about, we just cannot see two people be friends anymore without that becoming. I know, but
exactly.
That's got sorted, I suppose. But yeah, no, I'm pleased for Harvey. You know, it's quite a you know, it's a little story that's their stock story, I suppose. It's there just to kind of fill a few spaces for the episodes. But I quite like it though. I quite like it, and I'd be happy to see Jean and Harvey back together again. So long as like Jean doesn't become too obsessive over him, because like, at the end of the day,
Jean at all, is it? Jean doesn't do that, surely not.
I know. It's just that like, we've seen Jean settle down again, and I don't know whether her being thrown back into a relationship again would be just be a bit too too normal for her? Like, or is it nice that you kind of seen Jean and Harvey together? Does it give them both a purpose on screen? It's a tricky balance in my mind, and I want to see more of them, but at the same time, I feel like, do we need to see it right now? Could it wait? Could it be held back a little bit?
Just like give them moments like independently. I mean, for a bit. I mean, I like the idea of Harvey and Jean. I think they work really well together. And like I say, Jean is the path to Harvey becoming the new Charlie Slater, which I still 100% feel is that guy's destiny. You know, that's going to be his role in when we're talking about the show in 5 years' time. That's where Harvey will be, kind of just in the Slaters, being the new Charlie, driving people around in his taxi. So. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is all nice, but I just think it's intriguing. It feels like there is more to this than meets the eye at this point in this storyline. And maybe, like I say, I've just been jaded by stories gone past, and this is literally just a sort of little character building exercise that's sort of establishing a few friendly relationships on the square. And if it is that, absolutely fine and dandy, because the show's been needing that, and Chris Clenshaw's one of his strong points has been sort of building up the community feel on the square, and the community feel on the square has never felt as good as it does currently. And if this is just the path to kind of building on that, then absolutely fine. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
You're right. We were moaning again, maybe of the past era. That everyone having a bit of a gripe. Again, that's for later.
Thruple.
But you know, no one seemed to be friends with anyone in EastEnders. That kind of everyone, the only way people interacted with one another, recently, was that they
shagging or stabbing.
Exactly, that's very well summed up. Shagging or stabbing.
Thank you.
But since again, Chris Clenshaw seems to have the intention of building friendships, building relationships, building community, and it's so welcome to see that again on the show, and I'm very excited. It's the roots of the show. Let's be honest with you, that it's about community. It's about the spirit of this
show. Feels great, doesn't it? It really does. The square feels like a square of people that have known each other for years. Friendships are there. You know, you can see friendship groups, and that's great. It's well, we haven't had that in so long. You know, all of Harvey's mates. You know, that works absolutely fine. You know, the little group of Harvey, Mitch, Rocky. You know, all that works really nicely, and Dotty even in there as well. Zach can sort of kind of throw his tuppence into that at some points as well.
It's
showing my age. Showing my age. Throw my tuppence in.
But it's like he's found it's weird. The balance has been kind of done right. It's that he's got the soapy stuff. Claire's has got the soapy stuff. He's got the kind of slightly OTT, the slightly, you know, very dramatic stuff. He's got the stories which are kind of
fun stuff.
The issue-based stories, for want of a better word, so the stories that kind of we can talk about, and it's, you know, you can go and talk to your friends about, or you can relate to, and then you've got the community stuff. He's found the right balance. He's done you have to say he's done very well for finding this balance.
He's done a bloody good job.
We've had EPs where they've gone too far one way, where they've done too much dramatics, too many sound effects, too much kind of like hate and stabbing and murder and people jumping off buildings and this that, and the other, and shenanigans and warehouses. And then we went too far the opposite way, where we've had too much kind of community and fluffy, and everyone's helping each other out, and the bin bag storyline,
drowning in swimming pools, all that.
Exactly.
Never,
and now,
never forgive you, Sean O'Connor. Never forgive you.
And now we found
Mr. O'Connor.
We found the middle ground, and the middle ground has been found, and you know, it's lovely. I just hope that people are. This Christmas, I think, is a real test.
Christmas will be the decider. But I've never been so excited for a Christmas in a long time, because there is so much that can kind of. I think we know that the Janine and Mick thing is going to be the big thing over Christmas, which is fine, because it deserves to be. But it feels like there's so much more that can kind of be taken into the new year as well. So I love it. There's a new god in town. His name is Chris Clenshaw.
Next up then is the Lola story. Lola's in hospital. She's had the operation. Sadly, the operation, although successful to the extent that they did remove some of the tumour, the tumour is a lot more aggressive, and it's going to continue to grow, to spread, and it was discovered that it was incurable. Unfortunately, this came after Jay thought he overheard the doctor and the assistant surgeon talking, but about another patient, where they said the the operation was completely successful and that they would be going home and everything was hunky-dory and they were going to be doing, celebrations. And Jay had unintentionally given Lola this false hope. Amazing scenes, it has to be said. Amazing scenes
stunning.
with Jay, Lola, Billy. Honey was outstanding.
Yeah, wasn't she?
Was great. Wasn't she just? Ben was great being there as well.
Ben was great. Yeah.
Lexi on that video call. I even enjoyed Lexi on the video call. It was just lovely. It was just so many wonderful moments between them all. And again, it felt like similar to the Panesar family around the table. All of the family were together. They were connected. It felt real. The dialogue felt realistic. It felt like it was the kind of conversations you would have in hospital when Billy was trying to comfort Jay, but at the same time inside torn apart that he knows his daughter's about to die. Honey having that conversation with Billy saying that you have to stay strong. We can cry when we go home, but we cannot cry in front of Lola. But then Honey did cry in front of her, which I thought was sweet. But that doesn't take anything away from it. The scenes between them all, it just felt like, it just felt real. It felt like conversation. It didn't feel like it was forced. It didn't feel like they were trying to throw things in our face. It didn't feel like the whole purpose of this story was so they could put the BBC action line at the end of the episode. It was just like...
Which they finally did.
Which they finally did.
I can't believe it's taken all this time to give us the action line at the end of the story. Now we know she's going to die. Then we finally get the action line. I was shocked by that.
But also, it's the fact that we've not been spoon-fed information of how this story is going to occur each day, before the episode has been aired. We're watching it unfold as this family, the Mitchells, the Lola's, family around her is having it unfold in front of them. And it's just being done with such heart and such sympathy. And it's just, it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. As much as you can enjoy a story like this, of course.
Yeah, I mean, no, everyone was fantastic during this story. It's so sad, isn't it? It really is. I mean, Jamie Borthwick, I said this was going to happen, but Jamie Borthwick, again, broke me this week. It's just the way that he does crying acting. It really hurts my heart whenever he does, because he's got this way of just dissolving into tears that's really, really affecting. It's really, really good. Now, so where it goes from here, obviously kind of Lola's had her diagnosis now. She now knows that what she's got is terminal. And now I think they're just going to they're going to sort of test her to see how long she's got, basically, because they're unsure at this point, which I think now sort of just bodes the question, well, how long has she got? Do you think, I'm beginning to wonder if it's now going to be New Year. I mean, maybe she might die New Year's Day or something. What do you think?
Oh, well, Pat Butcher's type death.
Yeah, I can see that sort of thing. I still see that happening.
All the family come and visit. I mean, I don't think it would be quite so dramatic with like the family returning, fights in the rain or anything like that.
No, not quite. No.
Because she doesn't really, she doesn't have the same. It's funny, she doesn't have the same fragmented family as what Pat Butcher was leaving when she died. Lola's, she's got a much bigger kind of like support unit around her. But I like that. I know that, there's, could you add drama to this for, drama's sake? But I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's necessary in this case, because it's such a sad story seeing a young woman, ambitious woman, has a young child as well, and she's being taken away from this earth. And just I think it's the thing with this story, which makes it even more interesting. It's not just that the story is, of course, it focuses on Lola, and as it should be to begin for this part of the story. But then once Lola dies, then the shift of the story focuses to how the fallout, and I'll be really interested to see how they deal with the fallout, because again, a criticism we've had in recent times is that fallout isn't necessarily well done, or the aftermath isn't necessarily well done. Boat Week, I'm looking at you, with EastEnders, and I really hope. And this is the future, and I hope that this future is going to be done well. I mean, so to talk about the time frame for this story, I think I don't think we're talking about just Lola's death anymore. We're talking about Lola's death and beyond, and how Lexi's going to deal with it, how Ben is going to deal with it, how Jay is going to deal with it. Billy, I mean, I had this horrible feeling this week that Billy is going to end up going to jail, and Lola's
That would be awful.
Lola's going to be dying while he's
Oh,
locked
yeah.
up. Even more
Because all of
urgency
that-
then for him to be helped and get out of his case.
God, I've forgotten about all of that because Phil's been away. I've kind of forgotten that all of that was still kind of hanging on the background for Billy. I forgot there was still so much happening for Billy in the background.
Yeah.
Freddie being back. Which have kind of paused for the moment. And they've got Freddie being back, so all of that's still to be revealed, and everything that was going on with Keeble while Phil's away. So it feels like Billy's other stories sort of been paused while the Lola story kind of steps forward. So yeah, there's still so much more to come for Billy. Billy's going to have a crap 2023, isn't he, in the grand scheme of things, bless him. He is, isn't he? He's going to have an awful year.
It's a lot of things happening to him, bless him.
There is, bless him. But you were right when you say about Honey. I was watching Honey this week and kind of thought, God, this era has been a godsend for Honey. It's sorted her right out, hasn't it? Like, as a character. She's got her
brought
balls
dimensions
back
to her, finally.
Hasn't it?
She's stopped
she's
being
got
this
some balls
flat.
back as Honey.
She really has. And again, we talked about Billy and Honey being together, and I was so adamant. It's like, oh God, we're doing that story again, are we?
No.
It feels new.
Works
it feels
perfectly.
fresh. It works. This is the era. It's the era. It's the answer to everything, I'm afraid.
It's magic. Clever's magic. And I like the fact that Honey is able to actually be within this storyline with Jay and be a supportive role. And it feels like they've kind of just gone back to the way they used to without it feeling as though we've just been expected to forget about what happened. It's clear, I think, that that element is still sort of there, but just unspoken. But that feels acceptable. Do you know what I mean? It feels like there's all three of them. Like, I think there's still that level of Billy and Jay sort of getting used to one another again, and Honey sort of just kind of, they all three of them have an understanding with each other that this is a little bit weird, but I don't think we need to break over it. We'll just kind of carry on and deal with this because this is far more important. And they're so subtle.
Yeah.
But it's working really, really well. I like it. And I think that's just something within the actors' performances. It's not like the Jay and Honey relationship has really been mentioned in the script at all, but just the way that the actors are being with one another, it sort of feels that's there in the background. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And another thing is that I've also noticed is that Billy is like has character again.
I cannot wait to see your character rankings this year. It's hilarious to see you deal with Billy.
Billy, I told you, Billy's going to have a skyrocket up to the
told
top.
You.
But
it takes one storyline. Billy's getting three.
But it's given him a purpose. But it's like this week we saw a Billy that we've forgotten existed. Like when he talked to Jay, when he took Jay out of the ward and had a word with him in the corridor and said, not attacked Jay, but said to him, like, you shouldn't be giving this hope to Lola. You're giving misinformation and you're putting our hopes up. And Jay just broke in front of him, and then Billy suddenly put this softer side on him and said, I get why you're doing this, Jay, but you need to understand that this isn't just about your feelings, this is Lola's feelings too. And it's like, oh my God, Billy, I've completely forgotten that you actually have a character. This is insane.
It's great. It's really, really great. Yeah, this story's going to, like I say, the only thing that, like I said last week, the only thing I think that's going to derail this storyline is if it ends up getting rushed. But the way that I was kind of a little bit concerned this week. So, like I say, I thought at the start of the week the pacing felt a little bit off, but it had righted itself by the end of the week, and it sort of felt like, okay, this is where it's supposed to be, and that's okay. So I think moving forwards, all this is going to be now is just the characters supporting one another until we are told essentially when Lola's going to die. Because I think, as far as Lola's concerned, that's the only sort of element that's still left to sort of deal with, isn't it? Just sort of when is it going to end? Not if it is, it's when it is, and everyone's sort of aware of that. Lola's now going to have to deal with Lexi. So that's still to come.
Oh, that scene when she lied to Lexi and she said, I said I wouldn't lie to her ever again.
Yeah, that's gonna be a killer. Ben's now gonna have to step up, and he's gonna have to talk to Callum about like how they're gonna bring Lexi into their lives.
Yeah,
and there's so much. That's
it, isn't it? Because that's it. Yeah. Because that's the inevitable case that Lexi is going to end up being in Callum and Ben's life. Yeah, and I don't think they're going to. It's not a case that is going to be a problem for Callum's looking after Lexi right now, taking care.
And they get on like a house on fire.
They get on fine, but how's Lexi going to be? Once her mother's died,
she's going to struggle.
She's going to struggle, and how is that then? That unit going to survive together? I feel bad for Jay as well, because Jay's not going to have anything.
This is the thing.
That's it. Anything to look after him.
And I don't think that will have necessarily occurred to Jay yet. I think he will sort of just realise it a bit further down the line. But yeah, he's going to be the only one out of that sort of family unit that's going to be left on their own, and he's going to struggle with that, I think. So all of them are going to have to step forward for not only Lola but Jay as well. So I think and predict really, really strong stuff, really strong character stuff coming in the next few months from this lot. And I welcome it. So it's as much as a shame as it's going to be to lose Danielle Howell, who I think has been incredible so far and will continue to be. The thing is, I often see online with storyline like this, oh, what a waste of a good actress. She could act. But the thing is, there's no point in giving this to a weaker character that you're not going to get this level of emotion from going through the situation. Yeah. That's the sacrifice you make when you want to do a really strong emotional story like this.
So the final story this week, the beginning of the big Christmas story coming up. It was inevitable that we were going to see the start of it. Beginning of November seems like a good time. I mean, like I say, we're used to it kind of starting around September time, but that's fine. That's fine. We know we've seen a few leaked pictures out there, so we know that Mick is in trouble. He's returned. He's returned to the Vic with Alfie behind the bar. Didn't seem too impressed by that. And a bit surprised that the Vic was doing so well. Which I was like,
didn't seem too thrilled with that either, did he?
No, he was like, oh, it's very busy in here. And it's quite early in the evening. I can't believe it. Oh, hello. So, but Mick's returned with Janine after his tour of the United Kingdom to see his family, and surprised as I see to see Alfie behind the bar and Linda and him kind of being quite harmonious with one another, so it's already, you can see that Mick's a bit kind of like, oh, hang on. But it's a bit unfair, I feel, because Mick feels like he could move on, so Linda should have every right to move on too. Well, but I suppose they've always had those undertones that they were going to get back together, maybe.
Well, I mean, you ain't kidding that Mick's moved on, because he has apparently proposed to this woman. Yes. He hasn't even been that long, when it took him 20 years to get married to Linda. I don't know quite. I hope Linda calls him out on that, in all honesty.
That's very true.
Or we get some sort of explanation as to why Janine has sort of managed to... I mean, it's Janine, so, I think there's an element to it where we're supposed to think, oh, well, it's Janine. Somehow, she's clearly made that work for herself. So I persuaded him,
yeah.
Yeah, I can take it, but it's kind of just like, Michael, a bit of a weak moment. You've clearly got very weak under the notion of Janine. But yes, Mick and Janine are back. I mean, I'm still not talking to Charlie Brooks for leaving. I'm telling you that for nothing. So I want her to be in every single episode till the day she leaves from here on in. Otherwise, it's just going to upset me even further.
It's funny. It's funny you saying about Charlie Brooks leaving and this and the other. But having talked about this week, having seen the last few weeks, and Janine not being here, it's felt for me. I'm sorry, but it's felt for me that Janine's not really got a place on the show.
Get out.
She hasn't, though, really. Let's be honest.
Shut your face. You know what I'm talking about. Call yourself a fan. Honestly, it's disgusting.
I love Janine. I love Janine. I'm watching Classic EastEnders right now on Drama Channel. It's fantastic to watch her, getting up to mischief. It's just that we had so much hope, and I will go as far to say that the show will be fine without her, and that's as strong as a statement. Look, it's
and that's the strongest statement. I would never say that there is not a place for her, but the show will be okay without her.
But there's not a place for her right now. There's really not a place for her right now, in my opinion. I don't think there is, and I think that I don't think the return was the big return that we all hoped it was going to be. Not to say I'm not enjoying what Janine's doing, and not to say I'm not enjoying the prospect of what's to come with Janine. It's just that there's stories that haven't involved her and doesn't necessarily feel like it needed her there. And I think that if Janine wasn't even back, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, you know what? We need Janine back. And I just think that it was a sign of the times that they needed something desperately to come back in order to kind of maybe pull in an audience that might fondly remember the times when Janine was there.
The bad thing for me is the fact that her and Stacey have shared like 3 scenes together since Janine's been back. When you consider the history between Janine and Stacey, especially seeing as like Kat was quite heavily involved with Janine at one point. I know Lacey Turner was on maternity leave, but she's been back like months now. There's been plenty of opportunity for Stacey and Janine to have scenes together, and it's just not been in the direction they've gone with Janine in. And it just always seemed very odd to me that Stacey and Janine never kind of butted heads again. Because I had great images of kind of Janine going after Kheerat, and her having and that sort of rivalry coming up again, and then Suki would be involved because imagine Janine versus Suki. That would have been great, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
but hey,
but that's what I mean. They not mix them in together. We got what we got.
We got what we got.
But so Mick returned, as I say, after his grand tour to see his kids. Now I got a little game to play with you, Rob. Can you remember? You remember exactly the summary Mick gave to Linda of how all his kids are getting on? So starting with Frankie. What happened to Frankie while they were visiting her?
She spilled something.
She didn't spill anything.
She got a dog.
No. That's Nancy. She didn't get a dog though. Nancy, I can't remember what Nancy did. I cannot remember Nancy at all. Nancy got a one-eyed cat.
Oh, so all right. Yeah, she got a dog. She got a cat. All right.
Yeah. Nancy got a one-eyed cat. Frankie, she fell off a scooter.
That was it. Yes, Frankie's fallen off a scooter, and the other two, Johnny's possibly got a fella, but we're not
Johnny's
sure.
got a new fella. Yeah, that's right. And what about Lee?
And Lee's got a mullet.
Lee is growing a mullet. Yeah. So there you go. So so at least we know what the rest of the family are up to.
They're all fine.
They're all fine. Perfectly stable things to do. Half the stuff. I just loved it when Mick was like doing the summary, and I thought this is just insane.
I mean, I think invariably preparing us for when Danny Boy Hatchet makes his return to Mick's exit, and to save the internet going, what the hell has Danny Boy Hatchet done to his hair? I don't know what his hair is doing these days, but if he's got a mullet, then at least we're prepared. It was very good of them to drop that in, just so we're ready for it.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved that bit. But yeah, so I mean, it's as I say, it's a bit of a shotgun wedding, isn't it, between Mick and Janine, I suppose, because Janine's.
Yes.
So there's still debate out there. Is Janine still pregnant? Do you think Janine's having a kid?
It feels like there's no need for Janine to be pregnant, which is what making me think. But I don't know. I think now Janine's back, we're gonna have all these facts and sort of secrets revealed quite quickly. Obviously, Christmas Day is coming up, and that's presumably is going to be when everything comes out. When the Die Hard DVD gets discovered and everything. I don't know where Scarlett's been during this time, by the way. Did Scarlett go with them?
Well, she did. And did you not? Did you not hear as they walked through the door? Janine, because obviously the actress wasn't there. Janine just went, "Hurry up, Scarlett!
Hurry up, Scarlett!" And then we would just assume that Scarlett scurried her way through the crowd and ran straight upstairs without seeing her.
It reminded me of when Tracy was young in Coronation Street, and she was like, "Tracy, go upstairs."
Going upstairs to play me tips. I wasn't seen for 16 years. Bless her. Yes.
Came back down, murderer.
So, I mean, do let us know in the comment section below, because we'll still be on YouTube as far as I know, this old archaic technology that we've been forced to use this week. But do let us know where you think any of the stories are going. I think we're in quite an exciting place. It feels like everything, that position that athletic runners do before the gun goes off. The sort of crouch position. That feels like what the stories are doing at the moment, just before the run up to Christmas. You know what I mean? I think it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting. The bunker is that the crowds are poised, the air is pregnant, and the gun is held up in the air, and everyone's about to start running towards the finish line. So that's the stage we're at the moment.
Chris Clenshaw's about to pull the trigger.
He's about to pull his trigger, and my trigger is about to be blown as well. So let us know in the comment section below what you think this race is going to hold.
Indeed. And also, Rob, may I remind people they can get in touch with us on Twitter at Walford Weekly and Instagram at Walford Weekly. And that's exactly what someone did this week. So it's time to read out your comments on I Ain't One to Gossip.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.
Thank you to everyone who got in touch with us this week. As I mentioned, you can get us on Twitter, Instagram, on our TikTok at Walford Weekly, our Facebook group, Walford Weekly Podcast. But there's also email, robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. And that's exactly what the Lamb Foster Mummy did. Hello, Lamb Foster Mummy on Instagram. That's how she got in touch with us. And she has written, "Good afternoon, Alex, Rob and Ben. I hope you are all well. So I was wondering how you think executive producers make decisions as to which characters to axe and why. If the actor doesn't want to leave on their own accord, of course. Do they sit down with each character's profile and analyse them? And if so, against what criteria? It seems unfair that Lola's had nothing to do for ages, and when she is, it's her exit storyline. She gives a list of people she wants to scrap.
Here we go.
Scrap. Again, this is not related to us, so don't start having a go at us for this.
We're not the gatekeepers.
We're not the gatekeepers. I'd scrap Vinny, Dotty, Mitch, Whitney, Bobby, and Bannum.
Whitney? Bobby? Well, there we are.
Keep Lola and bring back Dana. I saw the chemistry between Dotty and Harvey too. I feel Felix and Vinny are wasted at the moment, but hope they get good storylines soon. Thank you very much, Slam Foster Mummy, on Instagram for getting in touch with us. But the main topic is right at the top of that comment, which is about how they decide characters are axed.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I would like to think that what happens is a producer comes in, has a meeting with the writers and goes, right, which characters are you guys having difficulty with at the moment? Which characters do you think are you having difficulty coming up with stories for? Who has run their course? That would be the logical way of a new producer coming in. Obviously, each new producer that comes in will have their own ideas. Mm-hmm. I look to Sean O'Connor, for example, as I always do in these angry sort of rant situations. I refuse to believe for a second that half the characters that he came up with and he started acting was all agreed by the writing team. I just can't agree with that, I'm afraid. I do not believe for a second that he walked in and said, which characters are you really struggling to think of stories for? And they turned around and went, Ronnie and Roxy. There's just nothing for those two to do anymore. I can't imagine what direction we take them in next. But I imagine that that's the sort of conversation that takes place. Or maybe, a producer comes in who knows the show and thinks, you know what, I think your time is done. It's a shame. But then, what also might happen is that a producer comes in with a certain story that they want to tell, and it's a shame to lose the character in order for that story to be told, but the story was always kind of take prevalence over that. I think of the Who Killed Lucy storyline, which remains one of the biggest storylines EastEnders ever done. And would you agree that the sacrificing of Lucy Beale was worth it for the story that we got from that? What do you think?
Entirely worth it, because this is one of those situations where, again, looking at U-Boat Week, where if you kill off a character, the aftermath, the ramifications of it should echo through the show for years and years to come. And if you think about it, the Who Killed Lucy storyline to this day is still mentioned.
Still goes on.
Peter brings it up all the time. Bobby is brought up to Bobby all the time. And so that story, the crucifixion,
the crucifixion of Lucy Beale.
Sorry, the death of Lucy Beale. I've gone mad.
Lucy Beale.
Hang her up on that cross. The story is still talked about to this day, so it was worth doing it for that. But for Denny dying on the boat, not even talked about anymore, not even remembered. And the fact that they said that this is going to have, as you say, ripples for years to come, it's not. And let's be honest, it's not. Apart from Albie, I suppose it could be kind of linked to that one way or another. I mean, talking about, you saying about Sean O'Connor and killing Ronnie and Roxy. I mean, in a weird way, this also brings us to how some executive producers, when they first come onto the show, they want to be impactful. They want to do a big thing. And clearly that's what Sean O'Connor wanted to do. And he knew that two of the biggest characters on the show, to kill them both off, would be impactful. And there's an argument there that, although not on the show, it's still talked about nowadays as one of the biggest mistakes of the show. And so in a kind of weird way, that kind of will still bring people in, maybe.
Well, I am reminded of an interview that I read years back. I'm talking about the very, very, very early days of Coronation Street here, talking in the 1960s, when there was a character that died in the snug. What was it? Martha Longhurst, that was her name, I think. And she died years back in the 60s, when it was the first sort of producer change that came in. And he decided, right, I need to shake things up here. And he killed off Martha Longhurst, who was like one of the most popular characters in the show. And there was a guy who was the executive producer later on, and he was talking about that and said, yes, he gave us a great episode, but what we were then left with was a show without Martha Longhurst. And we were kind of picking up the pieces from that for a while. And that reminds me of sort of the Pat decision. We were left with Pat's absence is still felt today, I think.
That was very unnecessary.
Yeah. Ronnie and Roxy's death is still felt to this day massively, if not more so than it used to be, because the Mitchells are just an absolute shadow of their former selves and Abby as well. Abby is still massively missed. But if it hadn't been for Abby's death, this podcast wouldn't exist.
Well, I was going to say, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now.
No, because it was invented to moan.
It was invented.
Yes, and we've kept our USP going ever since.
Our promise was always to complain, and that's how we started with Abby's death. I mean, let's look at Janine. I was just now moaning about like what really was Janine's purpose for coming back to the show. If Pat was still alive, I think there would have been more of a purpose.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you kind of also got to wonder though: would Pat have survived the madness of the last few producers? I don't know. Like, would Sean O'Connor have kept her around? Would John York have kept her around? Would Kate and John Cena have kept her around? Who knows? You know, something mad might have occurred at some point. So, who knows? But do you know what? We've got what we've got, and the current direction of the show feels really exciting. The most exciting it's felt in years and years. We keep saying this every week, but do you know what? It's because we mean it, and we are really, really, really excited.
When sorry, just to quickly circle around quickly. So we talked about perhaps like when an executive producer wants to get rid of a character via death, for instance.
Yes.
But obviously, Chris Clenshaw's also gotten rid of a few characters by them just leaving the show.
By a taxi.
Yeah, by a taxi. Rainey, Stuart, Dana, you know, just to name a few. I mean, I think there's been 5 or 6, hasn't there, so far by Chris Clenshaw. And again, I don't feel like it's they're missing from the show. The Rainey and Stuart one, I felt a bit like, oh, that's a bit of a killer. But at the same time, they've introduced new characters, which kind of makes up for it. So I don't mind so much. I do miss Stuart and Rainey, but I don't miss Stuart and Rainey. You know, no,
it's too much to be laughed at Vice around.
I can't believe what's happening.
That will never not be funny.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is perhaps Vi will be quite important for the story with Lexi, Ben, and Callum in the future.
That's Vi's role. Imagine that's going to be Vi's role.
It makes sense. Think of like a grandmother who could also be quite comforting. I mean, imagine Vi with Lexi, kind of comforting Lexi. It would make sense.
They're both as precocious as one another, so that would work quite well.
But I suppose it's very much kind of like the one in, one out mentality of soap. So if you want to introduce new characters, which of course executive producers, they want to stamp the show as their own. And so Chris Clenshaw wanted to put his own professional stamp on the show. In order for him to do that, he wanted to build up the Panesars. And in order to do that, he needed to introduce new characters. So sadly, other characters needed to fall to the wayside. And it's what happens. And in his decision, the ones he got rid of are obviously not important enough for him to want to focus on.
Well, soap is a constantly moving machine. You know, it's the soap opera is a big old factory that never stops working. You know, and sometimes characters have to go away. The best thing you can do, I think, is, you know, I think what the exits in this era have shown is that not everything has to end in death. You know, can you imagine if Stuart? It means that Stuart and Rainey are still out there somewhere, and they can come back whenever. You know, you've got to think of the characters that could potentially come back one day and do something interesting. You know, maybe they looked at Lola and thought, you know, I don't know whether there's, you know, all those conversations have had to have been had. You know, it's a shame for Danielle because she is an amazing actress, and hopefully she'll go on to amazing things once EastEnders is done and dusted. But you know, I think when she gets given a story like this is the way to go, isn't it? Because people are going to remember this story the way it's going. It's going to be heartbreaking, and we've got a lot of it more to come, and it's going to leave us in an interesting position moving forward with the characters that are left behind.
And again, going back to your point earlier of Lucy's death, what the repercussions of that, and there's going to be a lot. And we said it already that, you know, with Lola's death, there's going to be a lot of stories afterwards that can be tagged along to it. So it makes sense to do it in that respect. And as you say, I think the thing is that we can't criticize Chris Clenshaw for wanting to do it because A, he's a new executive producer, he wants to do something new, blah, blah, blah. But also B, he's doing it with consideration and time. And you said like the same with Stuart and Rainey. He didn't kill them off. He just let them go so they can one day return. And Lola, yes, it's a death. It's the end of that character, but there's so much. So he's not just decided, I want to get rid of Lola, I'm going to do it as a death. He's put time and consideration in it. And that's that's a reflection of the era that we're in at the moment. And so I'm more than happy to let him do his journey. Clenners. You carry on, Clenners. I'll clean up after you.
Lie back and fiddle with whatever you like.
We'll lie back and think of EastEnders. But yeah, so it's an exciting time.
Lie
It's
back
an
and think
exciting
of
time.
Walford. Yes, indeed. So do let us. Thank you for your emails. Do send us all your comments, your questions. Ask us anything you like. It seems that you lot are getting quite interested in all our private lives. So please do send us any questions that you've got, and we are happy to answer them. And you can do that by doing the following. You can contact us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications about our spoiler videos. And you can find us on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites. You can email us at robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. So thank you very much indeed for listening, and only for listening. Hopefully you'll be able to watch us next week and all will be back to normal. So until then, our darling listeners, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from myself. Have a lovely week. Take care to you all.
Bye.
Bye.